So omega-3 fatty acids are also known as essential fatty acids. So anytime in healthcare, when you talk about something essential, what's that mean? Your body cannot make it, right? So if you're not taking omega-3s in your diet or in your supplements, guess what? Your body cannot make it, which means that you're going to be deficient. So why is that important? Guys, how many have ever said, I think I have a hormone problem? Have you ever heard that before? I think I have a hormone problem. It's all about my hormones, right? Right? So guess what? All your hormone backbone come from fats. You have to have those. Anybody ever worried about your brain or your buddy's brain? Okay, you have to have omega-3 fatty acids for that. And when you look out there, and if you're not taking an omega-3 fatty acid, you can't make pretty much any cell in your body, because every cell in your body it needs essential fatty acids. So here's also a key component. We talk a lot about, like, keeping our diets clean and making sure that we're doing a lot of right things out. And most people aren't getting near enough fatty acids in their diet, and it's critical for your heart health, your brain health, your eye health, like every part of us. And we talk about making sure you're getting a good source, right? I hear all the time about fish oil, like, where are you getting it from? Does it have metals in it? Like, is it safe? Like, is it sustainable? What I love about what LifeVantage is doing is they're taking and they're helping us answer the questions that are out there and making it super, super simple. Right? So the omega-3 fatty acids that we get come from a super clean source that's sustainable, and we can trace it back to the boat. Like, I love that. And I love the fact that you can literally take one of these out of the bottle and pop it in your mouth, and it doesn't taste fishy. That's how clean it is. So you can go buy a big bottle of something from somewhere, right? Which some people have done that. What if you're not finishing that bottle for 6 months? Last I checked, I don't want 6 months old sushi. Right? So I think it's critical that we make sure that what we're taking has a specific potency, and LifeVantage has solved that problem for us. All we have to do is take it. And in this, because omega plus, right? So the essential fatty acids that are the omega-3s, and the DHEA to EPA ratio is critical for brain and eye. People ask me about that. And so what we're doing is we're affecting those primary tissues, and that's why the ratio is the way it is. It's a very common question we'll get. The other thing is they'll talk about the dose.
Yeah.
They talk a lot about, is that dose high enough? What we're doing, guys, do you want to have a disease to take something? Right? Do you guys want to be sick? Okay, well, neither do I. So all the products are designed for what? For vitality, right? It's vitality. So, and just out of curiosity, how many of you have noticed massive changes in your own bodies with these products? Right, look around the room for just a second. All right, guys, those are people experiencing results with these products, not cure, prevent, or treat, but that's what they're noticing, because these products are different. The reason why there's over 800, healthcare providers in LifeVantage in the business is because the products are so solid, and because the science is so solid, and for me specifically, it was because of hands like that. It was somebody else's results that caught my attention, right? And so the products we have are second to none in response to that. So when you're looking at the omega-3 fatty acids, having them and coming in from a very clean source, that's been covered. And to have it with vitamin D in place and also the omega-7s, huge. Now the therapeutic dose is a little bit different. Like if somebody's got something going on and you're actually measuring the levels, Dr. Gordon and I were talking about this earlier today about, is there a time where you might increase the dose of the omega-3 fatty acids? And so I kind of wanted to have you hear what he told me on that.
Yeah, before we get into that, let me just tell you about the freshness of the fish oil. So, being in a cardiology world, I get to see the pharmaceutical fish oil reps come in too. Okay, so there are drug companies that make fish oil, which is the most expensive fish oil in the world. And one day, one of the reps came in with one of them, and I said, "Have you ever cut one of these open?" He said, "No, I haven't. Let's do it." So we cut it open, and it smelled like rotten fish. Okay, this was a pharmaceutical grade fish oil. And so after lunch, when I went back downstairs, my nurse, when I walked past her desk, she kind of went, "Have you been cleaning fish?" I mean, you don't want to be putting stuff like that in your body. So if pharmaceutical companies have fish oil that's not fresh, you know that there's other bad fish oil out there. Ours is the freshest, as Dr. Brimhall mentioned, that I've ever seen. So getting back to the dose, or tasted, yes. Yes. Have any of you bitten into one of them? Yeah. It doesn't taste bad, does it? No. Try that with other fish oils. You'll like, it's horrible. With regard to dosing, as a cardiologist, obviously I'm interested in the cardiovascular protective effects because the heart is more important than the brain. I think, no, you may disagree. I don't know. We can have a debate about that.
I don't know, but there's no electricity to the heart. There's a problem.
True.
Okay, we'll talk later.
Anyway, so there's been a lot of controversy about the protective role of fish oil in cardiovascular disease. And if you read, the medical literature, you'll see one study where it helped, the other study that it didn't. But here's the problem. In those studies that didn't show a benefit, they just gave the patients a specific dose of a fish oil and said, here, take this. Okay, but if you look at the studies where they actually measured the fish oil levels in the people to find out, number one, if they were taking it, and number two, if they were getting adequate levels in their blood, the results were much different. They were all very positive. And so there's a test that you can have done. It's called an omega index, and it measures the percentage of omega-3 fatty acids in your red blood cell membranes. And you want it to be 8% or higher. And here's why. When you look at all of the studies with thousands of patients, in those patients that had an omega index of 8 or higher, they had an 80% reduction in cardiac event rates. 80%. Guys, that's better than any medication out there. So because of that, I want to have an omega index as high as I possibly can. My omega index is 10, and I take 10 to 12 of our omega plus per day.
Wow. And just from the standpoint of when you measure that, I've measured these for years, that omega index, and literally I think I can count on 2 hands after probably 5 or 6 years of running this test, people that had a normal or optimal omega index, and every single one of them were taking high quality fish oils for longer than a year. So it's super critical that we have that in it. Just how beautiful, all you have to do is open the Vitality stack up and take it.
So you have a good point. It is a cumulative effect. You cannot expect that in 2 weeks. You pop a few pills and then you think in 2 weeks you're going to see a difference. It takes time for the body to build the reserve and have that in every cell so it can be detectable at that level over 8%. Dr. Gordon, did we talk about, when we talk about NERV2, about why physicians don't, I don't think we talk about that here. So we are talking about physicians, and a lot of physicians do not know about NERV2. I mean, I get this question all the time. My physician doesn't want me to take Protem NERV2. What can I do? So why is that physicians don't know about NRF2?
Well, NERV2 is a relatively new pathway that's been identified, and it was discovered in the mid-90s. And it hasn't been taught in medical schools. I even talked to a gentleman who finished all of his medical training a year ago, and I asked him, he did, standard medical school, then he did an internal medicine residency, and then he did a fellowship in rheumatology. So he is one of the most recent grads I've ever talked to, and he said, we never learned about NERV2. He came to one of my meetings, and that's where he learned about NERV2. So when I first heard about NERV2, I had no idea what it was. When I first heard about Protandim, and I thought, there's something wrong with me. I'm a doctor. I should know what this NERV2 thing is, right? So then I go out and talk to doctors, and nobody else knew what NERV2 was either, so I didn't feel so dumb. And then I started to ask myself, why don't they know about this pathway? Well, it's because prior to Protandim, there had not been any agents that actually activated that pathway, so there was no reason for them to know about it. But there's just been an explosion of research in the area of NERV2, and at last count, there were over 10,000 published studies on NERV2 on PubMed. And so with that explosion of research, yeah, that's a big deal. There are pharmaceutical companies now that are racing to try to develop NERV2 activating drugs to treat all of these diseases that we know oxidative stress plays a role in. And one of the smartest people that I know was one of the first people that I called when I first heard about Protandim. He was a guy that I trained with, and he was at the time working for a major pharmaceutical company. And I called him up and I said, what do you know about Protandim? What do you know about NERV2? He goes, oh my gosh, Mark. He said, the company that I'm working with, I'm actually working on a study right now where we have a NERV2 activating drug that we're studying in a particular disease. And Protandim is a supplement, so we can't claim that it cures, treats, or prevents anything. He said, but we're doing a study on this drug to treat this one particular disease, and we've read all of Protandim's studies. We are very well versed on Protandim. And basically what he was telling me was, at least at that time, Protandim was the gold standard by which all of their NERV2 activators were measured. And I still believe that that's the case today.
To second this, guys, I just came back from the second NRF2 conference in the world. NRF2 as a therapeutic targeting protein for chronic diseases. And it was not intended for supplements. It was all about drugs and the future of the pharmaceutical companies. So let me tell you, multiple therapeutic applications of synthetic NRF2s are coming on market. So we understand what we have, and we understand that we're first and the pioneers. Let me tell you, a few months ago, they sent a couple dozen mice in space. And why did they do that? To examine and investigate their NRF2 levels. I'm sure they sacrificed them by now, but that's the future.
Wow.
Guys, very well done. So it's more and more, there's going to be more and more awareness of NRF2. We are in a NRF1, this is just starting. There's hardly any paper on NRF1, so we are just ahead of the curve. And when everybody gets to the top, it will be even higher. Oh, you want?
I want to say one more thing.
Okay.
You guys probably are very well versed in the literature on Protandim. You've probably read all the studies. How many people have read all 27 studies? Raise your hand. Wow, I'm surprised. The Washington State article is not a Protandim specific article, but it is discussed. And that's the best article that I have found to give to healthcare practitioners to get them to understand what NRF2 is. So if you have a healthcare provider who is interested in learning about NRF2, get them that article, let them read it, and educate themselves. But in that article, one of their concluding statements is, and you've heard this before, NRF2 may well become the most extraordinary therapeutic and most extraordinary preventive breakthrough in the history of medicine. And that says it all.
The author is Paul P-A-L-L 2015 out of Washington State. So I want to ask you a question back there, unless you have a comment you want to make. You took so I know you wanted to make a
I could read your mind. Not really.
So I want to ask you, so why the vitality stack?
Okay, great question. I actually wanted to just talk on just a second. How many of you felt like that healthcare is complicated, right? Wouldn't it be nice to be simple? Like to have a simple way of actually maximizing your body's potential? And I love the fact that quote by Washington State, and it's key, extraordinary twice in the same sentence is super unique. And to mention therapeutic and preventative in the same sentence, it blows my mind. What that means, all y'all, is we're talking about something that is truly therapeutic. It means they're going to use it to treat things with. At the same time, we're talking prevention, right? What are we? What is LifeVantage? We're a nutrigenomic company at the forefront of that, right? And the Vitality Stack makes it super, super simple. For the last 20 plus years, my life has been teaching and training physicians all over Canada, Europe, and the United States. I'm teaching physicians of how to incorporate over 200 different nutritional products into their practices. Why 200? We weren't doing nutrigenomics. What we are doing is trying to fix different systems based on what synergy we can find and to try to help people, right? What you have your hands on with the Vitality Stack is you have the keys to biohack your body's human potential in every aspect that we know of, right? Reducing oxidative stress, okay? You're getting the sanitation department to work, you're getting electricity to work, all right? And you're becoming efficient in everything that you're doing. So that Vitality Stack is so brilliant. Like, it's taken literally what I used to do, super complicated, 200 different products down to just 5. The Vitality Stack with the Axio, guys, and you have that answer, and you can explain it in a simple, simple way, right? Do you want to function here, or do you want to function here, right? And we don't have to guess. If you're a mammal, these things work. We're talking about activating genes that we all have. That Vitality Stack is brilliant because it keeps it so, so simple. And then you tie it to a business where you can help other people share it. Because guess what, guys? How many of you heard about LifeVantage and nutrigenomics from your doctor? Raise your hands. Okay, is that one hand?
Yeah.
All right. So that means the rest of us doctors, we found out about it from who? You guys. All right. That's the power that you have, and the power of the products enough where it gets 2 MDs and a DC and a PhD. talking about this and being involved in network marketing. We have a vitality stack. You just need to get it into people's hands, give them the chance, let them choose what they want, but educate them on the importance of the power of all of them together.
People ask me all the time what supplements I take, and I take things in addition to the Vitality Stack, but I tell people the Vitality Stack is the 4 cornerstones of what you need for good supplementation. Nerve 2 to reduce the oxidative stress, Nerve 1 to improve mitochondrial function, the omega-3s for all the protective effects, brain, heart, immune system, etc., and the probiotic. Now there's one other option if you don't want to take the probiotic, but it's not very pleasant. You need to get the right bacteria in your gut, right? And you can take a probiotic, but if that's not appealing to you, you can go to a clinic. I know that they have one in Phoenix, and you can have a fecal transplant, so it's your choice.
So guys, vitality, vita means life. So what we have to me is essential, meaning must in my body, and raftuprotandum upregulates my cellular defense. Mitochondria turns on the good genes and gives me energy. Probiotics, other than populating the bowel and stuff, we know that microgut is our second brain. Over 90% of serotonin is made by microbiota. You know, let alone the over 80% of our immune system. And of course, the brain function relies on these essential omegas. So thank you. Well,